Revolver Facebook Live, we are here with Jesse Leach from Killswitch Engage. How are you doing today, man?
Good, you?
Doing good. I'm stoked. We're gonna play a little game today called First Worst. We're gonna ask you about a subject, and we're gonna talk about your first experience and your worst experience with the subject. You ready?
Okay. I'm ready.
Game? All right. So what's the first song you ever wrote?
First song. I think it was a song called Looking Back with my band at the time, Departure. And it was a breakup song, and it was terrible.
Can you sing some of it if you remember?
I think the bridge of the chorus is like, "Don't touch me, don't look at me, I push the pain aside." I really liked Metallica at the time. Metallica and the Misfits were like my huge influence. I still have the cassette tape somewhere. Maybe someday I'll put it online so everyone can have a good laugh at me.
That's awesome.
No, it's not awesome, but...
I was gonna say, relatedly, what's the worst song you ever wrote?
Same song.
There you go. So what's the first show you ever went to as a fan?
I used to go to Christian rock shows with my parents because it's all I was allowed to, but they don't really count because they didn't influence me or like make me want to do music at all, actually.
They weren't hard?
No. I'd say the first show that really got me to want to do music was a band called Kilgore Smudge, which later became Kilgore. They did Ozfest in like '98 maybe. It was them, this band called Second Skin, all underground bands from the Providence area at the time. And I just remember thinking, I got kicked in the head by a skinhead in the pit, and after I had smoked a joint with my cousin, and it was just like, I'm in this, I gotta do this. Whatever this music is, whatever this crowd, this scene, I was so into it. So yeah, I'd say Kilgore Smudge, for sure.
Awesome.
AKA Kilgore, you can look them up. Nice.
And what's the worst show you ever attended as a fan or spectator?
Oh, I have to be polite.
You don't have to name names. You can just describe what happened.
I could just do like charades of the band.
Yeah, the viewers will guess.
That's hard to say. I'm pretty picky. Off the top of my head, I really couldn't tell you. Probably early Killswitch shows were pretty terrible. No, I had a band called Nothing Stays Gold. I'd say I wasn't at that show, but performing at that show, I'm sure just my vocals alone was probably the worst show I've ever heard or seen. Terrible, don't look that up.
What's the first album you ever paid money for?
Genesis. I can't remember the name of the album, but I was a huge Phil Collins fan when I was in like 4th grade, because he was all the rage in the 80s. I still love Phil Collins, shamelessly. But it was the Genesis record with the little yellow blocks on it. I can't remember the name of it, but I bought it at Sam Goody in Cranston, Rhode Island, in Garden City, at this tape shop. And I didn't like it because I wanted to hear the Phil Collins that was on the radio.
Right.
And then shortly thereafter was Run DMC, King of Rock, which I still love.
Yeah. What's the worst album you ever paid money for?
Probably Vanilla Ice. Because yes, I did buy Vanilla Ice when I was a kid. And it was like that one song my brother and I liked, and you listen to the rest of the record, and I was like, ah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a career.
Yeah.
What's the first tattoo you ever got?
Oh, terrible. It's right here. I don't even really know what it is, but I got it when I was 15 years old, and I was super into, obviously, Sepultura and tribal stuff. And I haven't gotten rid of it. It's terrible, though. Much like my tribal band. It's very 1993, 92. But it's a part of me.
Right on. Is it also the worst tattoo you ever got?
Yes. Coincidentally. Strangely enough, yeah.
Who would have thought?
I hope there's nothing worse than this on my body. Maybe there is. I don't think so.
So what's the first show you ever played?
It was a party or a club?
Whatever you consider to be your first performance.
Yeah, it was this girl, Tara Hansen's house. It was Halloween. in 1993, and that band Departure that I had embarrassingly sung earlier played. And we also did a cover of Seeing Red by Minor Threat and Unsung by Helmet, and I didn't know the words to either one of them because I wasn't cool enough yet. So on the demo tape, the last two songs is live at Tara's house, and I basically didn't sing the songs at all. But it sounded pretty good.
Nice.
I was such a dork when I was a kid, man. Still am, just older.
What's the worst show you ever played?
I wouldn't say that one because that was really good. Oh, I got one. This is good. So I was in this band Seamless for about 5 or 6 years, and I guess the Deftones were supposed to play at this place in Hawaii called the Pipeline Cafe, which I think is still there in Honolulu. And they dropped off, so the promoter thought, hey, Seamless would be a natural second fit, right? And it was New Year's Eve too, so it was a big show with a big club, and we were all stoked. We're like, oh my God, it's amazing. We're gonna go play in Hawaii for New Year's Eve. So we get there, we set up, the club's huge, probably could seat like maybe, hold like 1,000 people-ish. There were 10 people there. 2 of them which were like military guys that had just heard of the band and were bored. But imagine in this 1,000, 2,000 person nightclub, and I was just doing the best I could, and we got paid to go to Hawaii and have fun, but it was 10 people there, and we felt so bad for the promoter. Like, she had spent all this money for hotels, flights, and there was just nobody there.
Was it the best night of those 10 people's lives, though? Were they into it?
Probably not. Probably not, dude.
Bummer.
I did the best I could, like hamming it up and pointing at them and doing the whole, but yeah, it's embarrassing.
Fair enough. What's the first job you ever had?
McDonald's. I worked there for 2 weeks, and I put my 2 weeks in. It was the most demeaning, terrible thing I've ever done. And that stuff isn't even really food, it's just product. It's really odd to watch how many people eat that stuff.
Were you cash register or like?
I was the guy, all right, so back then in Cranston, Rhode Island, they had this booth that was on its own in the parking lot. And instead of you talking to a machine, you talk to a human. So it was me with like my half head skater hairdo with my McDonald's cap over it, hating the world, taking your order and not knowing which buttons to press, and sweating and having social anxiety. It was terrible. And sneaking French fries whenever I could. Yeah, I do not recommend working at McDonald's ever. And the smell you have when you get out of work, it's gnarly.
Fair.
Every time I walk by McDonald's, I get nauseous. It's nasty.
Fair to say also the worst job you ever had?
No. I worked for this, and they're a great organization, but I just was not cut out for the job. A group called Clean Water Action, which was like a nonprofit trying to raise awareness for the environment. So I was like, yeah, I'm all about that, all about environmentalism. And you have to go door to door, knock on people's doors in the middle of the day and get them to talk to them. Do you care about your clean water? And like you get them to sign something. 2 days, I think the second day I was hiding in the woods somewhere in Narragansett, Rhode Island, just afraid, waiting for the shift to be over so I could get back in the van that drove us back, and I quit that day. It makes you lose faith in humanity about going door to door and like trying to talk to people about the environment.
Yeah.
Anxiety-ridden, terrible. I'd never do that ever again. And I feel for people who do door-to-door stuff because I treat them the same way. I don't want to talk to someone. Why are you knocking at my door in the middle of the day? Who are you? It doesn't work. Door-to-door people. Yeesh. It's a rough job.
It's rough.
That was worse than McDonald's.
Yeah. Well, speaking about your punk days at McDonald's, what's the first mohawk you ever had?
Yeah, it was around that time. I think I had this tape called Punk and Disorderly, and on the cover was a guy with a mohawk. But I'd loved mohawks back when I saw Road Warrior when I was a little kid. And there's drawings, I think my mom still has them, of me in like 2nd grade drawing dudes with mohawks and being like, one day I'm gonna have that. So I wanna say 13, 14 is when I had my first mohawk.
Nice.
And then I got into like New York hardcore and bands like Agnostic Front, so I shaved it off. And then as I got older, it started to grow back, and it just kind of suits who I am now. I think I've had this mohawk on and off for the better part of like 12 years, maybe. Just suits me.
Yeah. What's the worst mohawk you ever had?
No mohawk is bad.
You heard it here.
Yeah.
No, I like it. Yeah. Right on. What's the first song that ever made you cry?
Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles. And I'm not going to sing it because I'll totally hack it, but it's got a melancholy to it. When I was a little guy, I don't know what the song was about, but just the way it sounded. And I was also a very emotional kid, so I'm sure a lot of things made me cry.
Yeah. I mean, I guess bouncing off of that, like, what is the worst song that made you cry?
That's a good question. Sure, there's a lot of terrible songs that made me cry. Pass? I can't think of one right now.
Fair enough. What's the first date you ever went on?
I went to go see Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure in the theaters. And it was a date with a double date because my brother was quite the Don Juan. I was not. I was very awkward. And the only way this girl would go on the date was if her friend came too and she liked me. And I did not like her. I was definitely not attracted to this girl. Probably a very nice girl. And yeah, I went to go see Bill and Ted's. I loved it. I had so much fun, but I didn't talk to that girl at all. I didn't hold her hand. It was very awkward. And I don't even think my brother got to second base that day, so it's kind of a failure all around. But Bill and Ted's, I still love that movie. It's great. Saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
Wearing a White Snake t-shirt, 1987 tour. And I got made fun of by a bunch of Metallica fans when I was walking out of the theater. So I'll never forget that. Still love White Snake. I don't give a shit.
Who's laughing now?
Yeah, who's laughing now?
What's the worst date you ever went on?
Worst date?
Yeah.
Same, I think. Yeah, it's pretty awkward. After that, I made my own choices and I never did the wingman thing anymore, so.
Yeah. There you go. What's the first alcoholic drink you've ever drank?
It was a beer, a warm beer, and I hated it. Little did I know. Yeah. That was like, yeah, maybe 92, so I was like in 8th grade, I think. Yeah. And then from there, it just spiraled into stealing liquor out of the liquor cabinet and making concoctions with like Kool-Aid and Southern Comfort, which I can no longer drink, vodka and whatever else I could get my hands on, put it in a thermos with ice and shake it and take it with me, which caused a lot of vomiting and a lot of crazy sweaty nights, but I know better now. I'm a professional drinker, so I got my shit together.
Nice. What's the worst alcoholic drink you've ever drank?
That said one that I mixed and shook with Southern Comfort and Kool-Aid. The smell of Southern Comfort makes me want to puke.
Yeah, no, those seem like two flavors that just do not...
Hard. That's a hard style.
That is.
And every sip, it was just like holding my nose. I just wanted to get a buzz. I didn't, though. It was terrible. My alcohol tolerance is ridiculous, even back then.
How old were you when you made that?
92, so 13, 14, maybe?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
What's the first band shirt you ever owned?
White Snake, 1987.
Awesome. Do you still own it?
No, I got so much shit for that from the other headbangers when I was younger, but that's the only thing I could get my hands on. Like I said, I came from a very strict Christian family, so
yeah.
I had to smuggle that out of the house and put it on after. I wanted Def Leppard Hysteria, but my parents wouldn't buy it for me. That was my favorite record when I was in 5th grade. That, and then I discovered shortly thereafter Anthrax, but Anthrax was way off limits. So we had to smuggle that in, along with Iron Maiden and Run DMC, the underground network of cassette tapes that went through my brother and I's hands. Until my dad found Number of the Beast, which I've told that story before the Iron Maiden tour, and he stomped on it in front of us and told us it was the devil's music. And then I had the pleasure of telling him that I get to open for them all summer a couple months ago. It was awesome. He laughed. He's not that way anymore, thankfully.
That's awesome. Not even related to I guess the band itself, but what's the worst band shirt you ever had in your collection? Could just be design-wise even.
I used to make them when the band didn't have one. I think I had a Chromags one that had magic marker. It's probably done. I tried to do Old English and it looked terrible. One that was actually, I don't know. Most of the band shirts I had were pretty cool.
Nice. What's the first time you ever hung out with Adam D?
Oh man, his band Aftershock was playing at Club Babyhead in Providence, Rhode Island. My band Corinne at the time wanted to do a show with them, so we had them come down. And the first thing that struck me about him was how big he was, with his big, huge, spiky blonde hair, and he was playing, I think it was a Stratocaster, and it was so small on him. And he was just this presence on stage. It's scary. He looked menacing. And then when he came off stage, he was like the nicest, dorkiest dude I've ever met in my life. And we hit it off immediately, like right there. And I remember getting his contacts because his brother had a record label, and he was the singer of Aftershock, and we just wanted to keep in touch because back then you had to like call people on their phones to book shows and stuff like that. So that's the first connection I made with him. I just thought he was the nicest dude. And then when he got on stage, he was just a maniac, kind of like how he is now.
Totally. What's the worst time you ever hung out with Adam D?
Most nights on tour when he's really drunk and I want to sleep. I love the guy, but man, when he's in party mode, he's like, I'll be in my bunk with earplugs on and cans and I can still hear him. Whoa! I remember one time I came into the front lounge and he was wearing, I don't know, some random shirt and like these glasses that were from the year 2000, Happy New Year's, you know, sparkly. And they were blasting like Toto Africa, and he was singing at the top of his lungs in what we call dude voice, you know. Yeah, Adam's crazy, but I love the dude. It's always a good and bad time when you hang out with him.
You can't say that about many people.
That's true.
Sweet. We only got a couple left. What's the first time you got injured on stage?
When I was a kid, I used to get injured all the time. Probably one of the most memorable ones, though, for me. I gave myself a concussion, headbanging, because back in the early 2000s, you know, the lower you got on stage, the more heavy you were. And it was when Killswitch first played Number Days Live. We were debuting, and we were opening up for this great band called Burnt by the Sun, which I still love those guys. And I remember just being so stoked. And I'm headbanging as low as I can go, and my tip of my eye connected with my knee. And it was like, you know, that moment when you see white and everything's like, woo. And apparently I finished the song, I don't remember, but I almost passed out a bunch of times. I was bleeding. And I was like, that song's cool, it's super heavy.
What's the worst injury you've ever sustained on stage?
Physically or mentally? Or spiritually?
You tell me.
Oh, I don't know, man. I'll just go with the same one, lazy answer.
Yeah, all good.
Well, I actually had the microphone shoved into my gums when I was in that band Corinne. Stage diver launched off of my back and the mic went up into my gums and I got an infection because the microphone was so gnarly. It's the same club that, you know, G.G. Allen, the Meat Man, all those gnarly people, and just, I'm sure there was probably shit, blood, and cum on it. I have no idea, but yeah, I got a really bad mouth infection from that. That's probably worse than the concussion.
Gnarly.
With blood everywhere, but I thought that was really cool, you know. Just spread the blood all over and keep going.
Yeah.
This is hardcore, bro.
What's the first R-rated movie you ever saw?
Alien. And I wasn't allowed to watch it. My dad was watching it. My brother and I snuck downstairs and hid behind the couch. And I was sweating because I was so scared. Because it was right at the end of the movie where they actually show the alien. And I had nightmares for days. But to this day, Alien is one of my favorite movies ever. I think it's a masterpiece.
Totally.
Yeah.
What's the worst R-rated movie you've ever seen?
Worst and best, I'd say RoboCop. I just recently watched that. It's so bad, but it's really good. Most like bad good movies are like that. Like Troll 2 is famously bad good. But I don't know if that was R-rated. If it is, it shouldn't have been R-rated. It's a terrible movie, but yeah, Alien probably.
And final question, final first worst.
They're raising the roof over there.
Yeah, there's a party next door.
What was the name of that show?
Super fun.
With Nick Cannon?
Yeah. Wildin' Out is in
Wildin' Out is going on right now.
Yeah.
Right over here. For anyone who's a fan of that show.
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
Speaking of Wildin' Out.
I hear it's pretty wild and out though. Wild.
What's the first law you ever broke?
I mean, illegally drinking, probably. I think. I did drive a truck when I was in 5th grade, illegally. That was fun. Yeah, drinking and driving probably, when I was really young. Yep. Living on a farm in Wisconsin for 2 years. What else are you gonna do?
Yeah. And what's the worst law you ever broke?
Probably smoking weed because it shouldn't be a law, right?
That is probably the dumbest law.
It is the dumbest law, and that fact that I have friends that serve prison time for having possession, that's why, to get political, I think it's the stupidest law. It should be legal. Marijuana should be legal, and the fact that it isn't is so far beyond stupid. So there's the worst law I've ever broken.
Fair enough.
I got my own audience to back me up.
Yeah, they agree.
Nick Cannon likes it too, man.
Hell yeah. So, thanks for coming out. Here you're going somewhere with Killswitch Engage.
I'm going somewhere.
November and December. What's
I love this. It's so awesome. They're wilding out over there. It's crazy.
Yeah, tell us about this tour you got coming up.
Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you the dates, but you can look it up online. We are taking out Born of Osiris.
This is ridiculous.
This is awesome. Crowbar, which I am so stoked to tour with Crowbar. Massive fan of those dudes. And then Death Ray Vision, which is Mike D's side project, kind of hardcore band. Yeah, it's just to make up dates that I actually had to cancel because of my vocal surgery. So we're trying to make up all those shows that we had to cancel. I think we might have a couple left. I'm sure people will message me later and tell me that I forgot a date, or why are we not playing in this city, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, it's a nice diverse lineup. And again, Crowbar, how cool is that, man? I'm gonna be side stage every night, damaging my neck watching that band.
It fucking rules. Yeah, Killswitch is coming to Providence, Poughkeepsie, Reading, Cleveland, Louisville, Chattanooga, Asheville,
Chattanooga.
Wilmington, and I've never learned how to say it. Is it Sayreville?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. It was right in my head this whole time.
Chattanooga.
Chattanooga.
That is random, huh?
Yeah. It's going to be sick. Thank you for coming out.
Yeah, thank you guys. That was odd.
Yeah. Thank you, Wildin' Out. And
I'm always wilding out.
thank you, Revolver. Fanbait viewership.
Bye.
We'll see you later.